Hey guys, what's going on? So in this video, we'll be learning about how to tell Git to ignore certain files. Now notice that whenever I create a new file in the working directory, say run2.py, and if I open my Git bash, and if I type git status to check the status of my working directory, you will notice that run2.py is being listed as untracked. Now when you're working on a really large project, there will be certain files that you don't want Git to track. That's because there are certain files that are created dynamically that you don't even need to be tracked because they are useless. Also, certain files like IMG files, JPG files, PDF files have no point tracking them, right? So we can tell Git beforehand that, hey, no need to track these files as they won't be of any use for me and it's not necessary for you to track. So let me go ahead and delete run2.py. Cool. Now Git has a solution to this problem. So whenever you want a file not to be tracked beforehand by Git, you can actually mention those files in a file called .gitignore. So let me go ahead and create a file and name it .gitignore and hit enter. Now one thing to notice is that .gitignore is itself a file. So I need to add it to the staging area and then later I need to commit. So let me go back to git bash, git status, and you would see that .gitignore is untracked. So I won't be adding it to staging area now. I'll be adding it to staging area once I include all the files inside it. Okay. So navigate inside the git ignore file and type the name of the files that you want Git to ignore beforehand. So let me type run2.py. Let me also type a.log, b.log, c.txt. Cool. Now let me add it to staging area and let me commit it. Git add. It's added to the staging area. Now let's commit. Git commit. Let's give a commit message. Remember, it's really important. Created .git ignore file. Hit enter. Now it's committed. So let's check once again if there are any untracked files in Git. So our working area is clean. Now let's go back and create all those files. Let me close this. Okay. So let's create a file called a.log. Now Visual Studio Code has by default overlaid this, meaning that Git is not tracking it. So to make sure, let's type git status again. So earlier when we created run2.py and we typed git status, it showed us that, hey, run2.py was untracked. Now, since I have mentioned a.log inside the git ignore file, now if I type git status, you notice that, hey, there are no files untracked. That's because we have included a.log inside the git ignore. Now let's create the run2.py as well. Run2.py. And if I type git status, you notice the same. Now if you notice one thing carefully, in our git ignore file, we have manually given the names, right? run2.py, a.log, b.log, c.txt, right? Now if there are multiple files, say thousands of files with .log extension, how would you insert all those values? Certainly you won't be including thousands of logs individually. So in order to include as many files as they are with .log extension, what you can do is simply type star.log and save it. Now it's a modification inside git ignore. We need to commit this modification. So let's go back to the git bash. Now since .gitignore file is a tracked file, we can directly commit it by typing git commit -a m modified git ignore. Hit enter. Now that file is completely committed. Git status to make sure everything is clean. Okay, let's go ahead and create multiple log files. Say c.log. Oops, let me delete it. It's log. Let me create d.log. Let me create another log file, d.log. Now let me type git status. Remember, I'm making use of both terminal and git bash because I'm comfortable with both. Git status. I can see there is nothing to be committed. Let's type the same there as well to make sure. Status and everything is clean. Now one thing to note that you can not only include files, you can also include entire directory as well. So let me go ahead and show you that one. Okay, so let me go ahead and delete all this. Let me delete run2.py as well because we don't need it. Okay, so as I told you before, you can also ignore a complete directory. So let me go ahead and create a directory first. And let me name it test2 directory. And inside test2 directory, let me put some couple of files, abc, df. This is a file, dummy, and so on. Now if I go ahead and type git status, you'd see that we have modified git ignore. That's because we have deleted that run2.py. Remember, we have deleted that run2.py file from here. That's why it's showing modified. And we have entire test2 directory, which is untracked. Now, in order to completely tell Git to ignore it, we can pass this name inside the .gitignore file. Let me go ahead and do that. We can directly type test2 and put a /, save it, and let's go ahead and commit this file. Git commit -am added test2 directory in .gitignore. Cool. Now let's go ahead and type git status. Now you notice that the entire test2 directory is now ignored. Now whatever new entrant that I give inside won't be tracked at all. GH, LLI. So these files won't be tracked. These files and this entire directory test2 won't be tracked. So if I type git status, you would see that there is nothing to commit. Alright guys, that's all for this video. And if you really enjoy this video and you want to support us, there are a couple of things you can do. The simplest and the easiest one is to simply like and subscribe the channel. And secondly, you can also spread the word to others who really want to learn about programming and want to increase the tech stack. And it will also help our channel to grow. Alright guys, see you in the next lecture.